here with Mr. Dan Portik from Premier Podcast Productions, and they focus on producing professional podcasts for companies, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders, so that way you can find your voice, build stronger connections, and share your expertise with wider audiences. But it is quite a jungle out there, right? With video, and you have to make all the reels and figure out AI and get on LinkedIn, and it can be such a mess, and you can perhaps give up before you even start. So Mr. Dan Portik, the man, the myth, the podcasting legend, is here to untangle, demystify, simplify a few things for us and get us on the right track. So Mr. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm fabulous. It's I don't know about you, but whenever I have like any kind of appointment, right? Podcast meeting, whatever, I'm dreading it like 3,000 times. And then like 30 seconds in, I'm like, man, this guy, Dan, he's already a blast to talk to. Like, why was I kind of creating this obstacle for myself? And then I have this meeting and I'm already having fun. So that's my answer there. I'm having fun.
Sure. And, I think if you do enough podcasts, I've done a lot of them over the years, and, you just get comfortable with them. And, as you do yours, we're more comfortable. It's just conversations.
Yeah, you figure out your groove, you get relaxed. And so how does all that relate to you? Because I know that you have this podcasting experience, you're musician, songwriter, producer, and those are all like wonderful skills to have, right? Like I could never like professionally perform music or write a song, but then the cruel tragedy of life is that those kinds of professions, like they don't always like pay that well, right? Unless you win the lottery,
Right.
You can't be like a Taylor Swift unless you're like one in a million. So we have to apply, but we still have all these like mountains of skills, right? All this video and audio and production and people skills. So then you like apply it in other areas so you can make money or have fun with your art, but you can also grow an incredible business too.
Yeah, you know what? I guess where I really got into, the business world is more sales and marketing. And I've always found that musicians are the best salespeople because they're used to getting in front of people. They're used to performing, and sales is really more about listening and whatnot. But the two really helped me, having the creative background, then also the sales background, and growing my businesses. Podcasting is part of it. A big part of what we do is video production and video content marketing through BVS Media Group, which is kind of like the umbrella company to what we're doing. And that's been a very interesting journey as we have moved forward over the years with, especially with AI now and different things of that nature.
Well, wonderful. So BVS Media Group, you do the video production, and what does that mean exactly? Because video can mean so many different things.
Yeah, well, when I started in this business, it was more advertising. I had a company called the Jamestown Group back in the 90s. It's dating myself. But we did that for about 20 years. And then we kind of turned into a video production group around 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. And, we found that was a nice niche. It was just happening. It was just coming alive. The video production people were like, oh, what's video all about? We can actually do this online now. So it was real interesting watching that grow and getting to the point where we are now, where, a lot of customers come to us to, create AI videos. I want myself doing something else, but not being there. It gets a little tricky, So, I think one of the advantages of our company is we've always kind of like followed the trends and really tried to lead in those areas. And that's kept us, working well, in this industry.
Very nice. And it's amazing. Like I can never keep up with just all the innovations, right? I'll like the AI videos, they're getting so good. Sometimes I can't tell, right? I'm just like, well, either this person recorded and like really ran like a lot of filters. Like I can still tell it's like not 100% casual, amateur, genuine, but I'm like, I can't tell anymore if it was like really them recording versus it was like completely generated. And then like those of us that kind of sometimes play around it and play on like Google VO or tweak around, sometimes you like make a prompt and then it like takes forever to generate and only gives you like 5 seconds, and it's like not it's like in the wild I see something that maybe BVS Media and the team make versus you make something by yourself. Like there's quite a difference. And so like what kind of difficulties have you had? Because like there's always like some new tool, or sometimes there's like a promise that doesn't live up, or you have to figure out your workflow combining multiple tools. So like How do you, is there a secret to these amazing AI videos?
Yeah, you know what? It's changing every day. And, I watched this evolution. I'll give you an example. Sora was around for, about a year maybe, and it was developed through ChatGPT. Sora, anybody could go on for free, create these videos, little 1 minute things. Half of them right, half were wrong. We use them for promos. They went out of they went out of business. They closed because it was too much energy to create these things, too much power, and it costs money to develop that. So we're finding with like Google VEO, I can never remember it's VEO VOE. I'm not the
Sure.
creative, I mean the technical guy, but whatever that was, that Google product, we're finding with that, yeah, it's getting better. There's a lot of mistakes, but the key behind it, our team is, I feel they're very strong in prompt development, knowing what to ask the AI, knowing how to ask it. If you do that, you can alleviate a lot of those mistakes because it doesn't it thinks one word's one thing, but if you say it a certain way and you talk in its language, you can actually get it to do what you want it to do pretty good.
Oh, nice. So it seems
Yeah.
like it's important to play with the tool and to know how to prompt it, and so that way you can like overcome the frustration and know what to say, what not to say. Because like I know so many times I'll be working with it and I'll be like, okay, we're working on a document, editing it. And I'm like, okay, now make a graphic for it, and then I'll be like,
Mhm.
okay, now change this, and it'll like update the graphic, not the document I was working with. So then after a few frustrating iterations of that, I'm like, okay, I'll have to like talk to it, and it's almost like gets built into your subconscious, right? You're like, hey, like I'm
Yeah.
figuring out like the special language or wording to talk to it, so that way it's a kind of a smoother workflow over time. That is until they update the version, or until there's some new shiny tool out there. And so with AI being what it is, like, do you think the like physical like built up studio with the couches and the lighting, is that going away, or is that changing at all?
Actually, we have that. We've got about 12,000 square feet of studio space here with the podcasts and soundstage. And actually, we got busier. And
Ooh.
I think the whole key behind this is you have to know what to go after. For example, podcasting, it's going to be very difficult to fake two people talking about something. And why would you want to? I mean, right?
Right.
So podcasting, I think, is always going to be there. Things like company documentaries, customer testimonials, all these are human based things that I don't think are going to go away ever. What I'm finding about AI is, yeah, it's that shiny tool in the corner. Everybody looks at it, but what it really does is it streamlines everything that you're doing. And for us, it was really advantageous. I mean, we don't use voiceovers. We use AI voiceovers. They're perfect. How do why would I hire, I hate to be that way, but why would I hire someone when I could use a perfect voice that can be done in 5 seconds? I can make revisions in 5 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
So for my business, that's changed quite a bit. The tools for, like, here's an example. We did one yesterday where a customer wanted to, he makes a certain product that goes over heater covers, and we turned him into a superhero. We took his likeness, we had him kick the door down and go in and start working on these things. They love that stuff, that kind of thing. But it took some generations to make it happen. I mean, you buy these points or whatever credits with the Google product, and you're continually buying those credits, but it's still way cheaper than an animator. So that's what we're seeing happening in that world right now. I think it's always going to be, video is always going to be there, at least for quite some time. As long as humans are involved, that's going to be the case.
Well, very cool. So it'll just add to it, right? You can have the naturally made plus the AI generated, even though, as you're saying, is that even though it looks easy to make, it's not always as easy as it looks. And even though it is cheaper than it used to be, it's not completely free, because they have to go and power those data centers and use the electricity and the cloud computing and all that fun stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
this whole world of the physical podcast studio, it really fascinates me, because I think the closest I've ever gotten to that is like, I think I walked through like the CNN building in Atlanta, and you got to see all their equipment. But I've done almost 2,000 podcast episodes, I've never ever done like the sitting on the couch with the microphone over, and like that's one of the
Yeah.
things on my bucket list. And but I don't want to just like go on Yelp or Craigslist and go find some studio and like waste a
Come on
couple
to
$1,000
Cleveland.
just for vanity. So what's that?
Come on to Cleveland, and we'll hook you up.
So that's what I want to talk about. So let's say someone's in the Cleveland area and they're just like curious about, okay, well, you could be on Zoom or Riverside like this where you're at home, but if they want the really slick look, like maybe they have a really important client they want to have on their podcast, or like kind of like a high-ish profile guest, and they're like, okay, well, I want to look into like doing it sitting on the couch, and I just want to go there and it all magically happens. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, so good example. We have one coming in next week. They're flying in. She's a Bitcoin expert, and she's meeting one of her high-profile guests. They're going to meet at our studio. We're going to set it up like a Joe Rogan 3-camera thing. She does a 2-hour thing. Out she goes and takes the footage with her. She has her own editing team. So I think that's a real advantage for people like that have a need for a studio that knows about podcasting and knows what it takes to do that type of thing. We're on all the directories like PeerSpace, and I think there's another one called what is it called? Gigster. So people can find us through there when they just type in, podcast space, pops up. They can order us through there or online as well.
Ooh, that's good. See, this is a whole new world I didn't even know about. And so what's the typical, I guess, package? Like, does someone come to you and say, hey, like I'm looking to build a personal brand, or I'm a HVAC business owner or something, and I want to like record B-roll or instructional videos? Like, what's some cool packages where someone comes to you and they say like, hey, I want to buy like a block of stuff?
Yeah, so we usually work on like 6-month or 1-year retainers. They range anywhere from $500 to $5,000 on an average, I would say, depending on what you need. And really, a lot of what we cater to are like business coaches. We had a business coach in yesterday that, they come in, do their podcast. We bring them on our show too. We have our own podcast like we're doing here, where we talk. It's called Com Talk, where we talk to them about what they do and how they do it, and then we push it out to our people. But he comes in and he does his podcast. We do interviews with him all in one block of time, and then we'll disseminate those throughout the month for him. And the other part of that is we're creating an online program for him. So he has a new book out called Bear Attention, and it's psychological coaches, how to coach your coaches, how to teach coaches to be better business coaches. And so what we did with him is, we took his voice, like just 120 words. About 120 words, I think it is. Brought it into another AI program, and now we took that whole course that we created through AI about the book, and he is going to speak it through his AI voice. I think we're finding that customers love that because they don't have to be there, to read their entire course. He can be out doing what he does best, coaching large corporations, and we can create this course while he's gone. So that's kind of a cool program for coaches, people of that nature, or anybody that has something they want to turn into to monetize in their world. So that's one. Documentaries are real popular. Companies that are having a big milestone, they want to do a documentary. We'll work on a 6-month or 1-year agreement with them where every month we work on the documentary. Their big celebration shows up at the end. There's their documentary. The real advantage of that is they have all these pieces of information they can use, content beyond just the documentary, all the interviews, everything that goes along with it. So that's been a real interesting and successful approach for what you can do in marketing as well.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And as you're talking about the possibilities and the outputs and the tools, I mean, we're busy as it is, right? I can only imagine someone trying to figure all this out on their own and playing around like, let me try this hardware, this software, these lights, these microphones, all these cables and wires, versus if they just go into your studio and it's just done and it's less to figure out. And I have to wonder, if someone comes in, say, to film the documentary footage or to sit and film like their podcast and then the podcast on your show, like, do you think there might be like an accountability factor? Like if if you're just sitting at home trying to knock out some videos, it's tough. But if you say, hey, I have an appointment with BVS Media at 10 a.m. and I have to put on some pants and go into their office, then you kind of have to show up, right? You have to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that helps with the consistency factor versus just kind of winging it in your home office or at home.
Yeah, it does. And I think you'll find we've worked with some pretty good sized players out there in the sales world, marketing world, and they do a combination of both, and they have teams that help them. So, Mr. Wonderful, I don't know if you know, he is the one guy
Kevin
that's on
O'Leary.
Shark Tank. Yeah, Kevin O'Leary. I mean, he does home things on his phone. He also does, you can see him in those crazy pants. He has, whenever he's doing this thing, they have like a side camera that shows him. But he does those at home. He also does live things. There's different pillars for those people on what they do all the time. But what happens is, you get enough information out there. Some of it relates to the people that are looking on their phone. Other ones relate to the higher end stuff when he's on CNN or Fox News, for the most part.
Yeah. And you figure out just that whole blend of like what's trending, what videos you seem to flow naturally, what you enjoy doing, and then most importantly, like what catches on, right? Like, I mean,
right.
You probably know better than me. Like, you put out so many videos, so much social media content, and like 90+% is like gets no traction, but that little bit, and it's like, why did that 5-second reel catch on, or why did that video with the crazy pants work? I guess I'll just kind of do more of that, and not the exact same video, but kind of lean into more of what the algorithm is telling me of what I should be doing. But you don't know unless you try, and unless you do that proper amount of quantity. And so there's so many just possibilities, right? And we could talk all day about, you could do this or that, but do you think, is there something that you wish a new prospect, client, customer came into you with? Like, do you wish that they had like their own goals, knew their budget? Like, what do you wish a new person walking in the door at BVS Media would like have prepared or have to say to you?
Yeah, I think with any customer that comes in, we basically ask them, what's your goal of your video or marketing? What do you want to see out of this? And then what is a rough budget range? And whether it fits our company or not, we have a whole group of freelancers out there that, we can always push to a different direction, say, hey, here's something you could do. We'll change parameters to meet whatever you need, maybe not through BVS, but through, another group that we work with. So there's always opportunities in that area. So I would say definitely just an overview of what you're looking to do and what you want out of it, and then a budget are two main things. Yeah.
Great.
One thing I do want to talk, if you got a minute, what I want to talk real quick is about disruptors. AI is a disruptor like any other disruptor. There's always these professionals that think they're all that when they first come out. So what we're finding is any disruptor, they're going to just slowly fade off. So everybody knows the Google products. Everybody knows AI. But eventually the cream of the crop is going to come ahead, and all the rest of them are going to go away. So I'm seeing that a lot.
Yeah, and you're like, if you can adapt and kind of do both, then it seems to be the ideal situation, right? If you can be consistent and have real business and have all this established stuff you've done, right? Have the courses, have the videos, have the traffic, have the content. And then if the fads come along, maybe like use some of those, but don't throw away your business because you see this disruptor coming. And then if that kind of folds into the mainstream, like so many, like podcasting, like video has, if the new AI videos become just everywhere and so easy or more than they are, then that can just become part of what your weekly, monthly workflow seems to be. And so it's an amazing world out there in this realm of professional video content marketing, especially in the Cleveland, Ohio area. But I want to make sure that we cover what's important to you, Mr. Dan Portik. So in these final minutes of our conversation, do you think there might be a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Yeah, no, I think the thing I'm thinking of is what I'm seeing from a lot of people when all this AI and disruption's happening is there's a lot of victims that are coming out. They're bringing themselves out and saying, like I hear a lot of voiceovers. Oh, my life's over. I was a voiceover for my whole life. Well, no, you simply have to adjust. Think about it this way. Your voice could be licensed. You can make money without even having to be there. Just little things like that. Think of the possibilities, the positive end of it versus, just woe is me, and I just hear that all the time. And it's like, there's so much more to life than I can't even tell you how many times I could have easily just folded it up, and said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore,
Oh yeah,
but
all of us.
you find the opportunities. You have to find the opportunities and have that mindset to find the opportunities.
Ooh,
So,
I
yeah.
like it. Yeah, and it's like it's such an easy sheet out to say, oh, okay, well, I did this for so many years and now it just stopped. And why can't people have the pity party and feel sorry for me? And it's easier for me to just focus on the negativity versus like
Yeah.
adapting, adjusting. Imagine if you were a taxi driver and Uber came along. Well, then go and drive for Uber or figure out something better. Or if you're a truck driver and the self-driving trucks take over, they say that in the future it'll just be like you'll be more like a drone operator or playing a video game or like remotely driving fleets of trucks instead of sitting in the truck. And it's like the same but different, right? Your skills have to
Yeah.
evolve. And imagine if you were out there and you were some kind of business owner and you said, video came along, I can't figure that out. I'll just stick to just like text posting and still images, and you'll miss out. So you need to stay ahead of what these new developments are, and
Yeah.
BVS and Dan Portik can help you figure that out. And so if someone says, okay, I'm really intrigued about all these things that are possible using the studio space, filming the content, the AI videos, and so much more, what are some next steps here? How does someone contact you and your company and start having this conversation?
Sure. You can go to info at B as in boy, V as in Victor, S as in Sam, filmproductions.com. Send us an inquiry. We'd be happy to, help you through whatever you might have a need for. Talk about, what your project is, what your goals of your project, and then, a rough budget. That helps on our end. I also have a line of books out. You can go to you can go to danportik.com, danportik.com. And I have a lot of books on sales, marketing, how to start a podcast, how to develop a podcast that you can find on that website.
Very cool. So there's some resources. There's bvsfilmproductions.com. But what we really want you to do is send that email. That's info at bvsfilmproductions.com and have that chat with Mr. Dan and his team about what we said, your goals, your budget, what you want to get accomplished and how they can help. And then if you say, well, I'm not quite there yet, I need some educating, well, then danportik.com is your resource to check out his books, his videos, his blog posts, so much more. That's danportik.com. And there's just so much to figure out, right? About the conversating and the podcasting and the sales process and the dealing with rejection and the listening. But if you want to succeed in life and business, then you have to figure this out at least somewhat. You don't have to be a total master, but many thousands of people have figured it out before you. And so it's time to step up and just at least get a little education, right? About
Yes.
LinkedIn marketing and prospecting and video and podcasting and what's possible. That way, you know it when you see it. And when you say, okay, cool, I want to have the weekly podcast where I sit on the couch and it's Joe Rogan style and I have the guests come in and I want to go into that studio in Cleveland, Ohio, then now you know what you want. And then that way you have something to move towards. And so you can have that discussion by emailing info at bvsfilmproductions.com. And you'll be glad that you took yourself and your business seriously and pursued some of these lofty video and traffic and content goals for yourself. And so before I let you go, Mr. Dan, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you, I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Yeah. I've done a lot of work with Tom Hopkins with his life documentary, and he worked with Ziglar for many years. And the two of them had one statement that it really helped me out a lot. If you help enough people get what they want, you'll get exactly what you want in life. It's pretty simple. That goes for sales, charities, whatever it might be. It always comes back to you. So hard to do, but if you can do it, it really will work.
That's beautiful. Be a problem solver for others, and then it will benefit you. And so help Dan help you solving this problem, as they say in Jerry Maguire, and email info@bvsfilmproductions.com. Have that chat, talk possibilities, and you'll have a lot of fun in this new world you're entering of video production, and that can include AI and podcasting and documentaries, so much more. Chat with possibilities. That's info@bvsfilmproductions.com. And thanks so much, Mr. Dan, for being a podcast pro, being a blast, and getting us excited about what can be done. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Robert.